Good afternoon, fellow Misfits. Just another Misfit Monday. Hanging out here, not inside Madge Hasler's mom's basement, despite what some may claim, despite the smells of cookies we may talk about. We are not there. We are in the Misfit Militia bunker.
Her new snickerdoodle recipe is fire, by the way, Madge Hasler.
Would you... He's not even here to admonish you for that one.
He'll get me later for it, I'm sure.
Obviously. So we are here. You notice we do not have Madge Hasler with us today. But today, after not having done it in a very long time, in the driver's seat, myself, Big Bad John, and in the gunner's seat we have...
Princess Magpul, because it's the last Monday of the month.
Something we've come to look forward to. And hopefully y'all have too.
Hopefully.
Hopefully so. So, what are you drinking this afternoon?
Costa Rican.
Ooh. I ask that as if
You didn't pour it for me.
I didn't pour it or brew it, or, but hey, it's the view that hits, right? I am also drinking Costa Rican. We broke back out the good old drip pot with all of the trials and things we've gone through making the filter pouches, which have been coming along wonderfully, despite the one faux pas I had in brewing them, but Madge Hasler did not. So he's gunning for my sommelier certificate. So
ooh,
I'm gonna have to put up the dukes. Ooh. And we are a little quieter today. No studio audience for the day. We're just everyone's coming off spring break, so we're gonna keep this still just as full of discussion. But we will not be commenting live, just a quick note to hit, but we will be watching the comments. So for those of you out there, please let us know you're here, let us know what you're drinking, and let us know how you're doing. Let us know how your week's been going. Going from last week to now, we know there's just been, I know with our close group of friends and family, there have been quite a few hardships.
Yeah. And on that note, if there's any prayer requests you guys have, leave them in the comment section. If you don't feel comfortable enough leaving them in the comment section, directly message the page, and we will make sure that you are covered in prayer.
Absolutely. I hope we've made it clear by now, but if we haven't, we'll say it again. Handling things of that nature first and foremost for what we do here. The business is only ours because God has allowed it, and if we decide to forego handling that, then I expect promptly that the business would be ripped right out of our hands. So it is anything of that nature first, and then the coffee. And you know what? If you're having that kind of a day, we're probably going to give you a cup of coffee anyway.
And if you are having that kind of day and you've got time, stop in here.
Yeah.
Come talk to us. You just need an ear to listen, or you're looking for a little bit of advice, or guidance, or questions on the Bible, and as far as anything you're dealing with, going through, just stop by. We're more than happy to have you back here. We'll pull up a chair for you. We'll get you a cup of coffee, and we'll take care of you.
It's funny because it's we stand on a very firm Christian platform, but that does not at all limit the scope of who we end up talking to on our day to day. We have discussions with everybody, and realistically, it's there's speaking and walking that life of the Bible, and then there's being able to do it with people that your standard Christians wouldn't be able to for some reason stomach being around. That's not how we stand. It's our coffee is of, by, and for the people, and we are the witness to the people that we feel God commands us to be. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into some Misfit news. Get that little soundboard button going in.
We gotta get one.
I'm waiting for it. Man, I'm waiting for it. First off the rip, we've got April 23rd. We have our event out at the range in Jackson on Highland Avenue. So I know we've tripped a little bit about it. We'll have flyers going up probably within the next week.
I don't know why I thought it was the 26th.
Huh. It's Tuesday.
Yes.
I'm almost certain it was I could be wrong. I've been known to be wrong before, but that week, Tuesday, could be the 23rd, could be 26th. Whichever one the Tuesday falls on, it's going to be that one. We've got a lot planned for it. It's equal parts enthusiast and gun introduction. So if you're not familiar with handling a firearm, but it's something like a lot of the people we've spoken to that you want to get into, there's just a lot of the intimidation around, you look out there and how many manufacturers, how many different rounds, how many, how do I carry it? I've got kids in the house, and all those questions are things that we're looking to answer, give guidance for. Through all of it, through the range, who's really got a passion for wanting to teach this to the community. So if you fall into any of those categories, which basically means if you enjoy bearing your Second Amendment right, come on out. It's going to be from 4 to 9 in the evening. They'll be staying open an hour later, even though they normally close at 8. Be open till 9. We'll have food. Our good friend Smoke Master Eddie will be there. He'll have some, I believe, some cream cheese along with some pre-prepared meats, so that y'all be able to come and sample all what he can offer. I know there's quite a few. I know there's a spice company coming out that's doing stuff.
Excellent.
I know we were looking into some sort of sweets vendor. We're gonna have informational packets for stuff with the kiddos. We're gonna have
we'll have games for the kiddos, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so. Yep. And then coffee.
Airbrush tattoos.
Which that one didn't quite pan out, but I believe they did find a backup.
Excellent.
So we got something going in the place of airbrush tattoos.
Okay, good.
Face painting. I know that's going to be there too.
Excellent.
We're up on our homework. But it's going to be a wonderful evening. We'll be out there too. One thing we will be debuting, we will have a brand new, drum roll please, design of hats. So we've got 3 different colors coming in. This is
new for me too.
New information.
New information.
So we've got black hats, we've got the khaki colored, and then we're also bringing in a navy blue this time around. $25 each. If you happen to catch us before the event and we have a couple, we might be able to let 1 or 2 go. Maybe.
If the price is right.
Per boss's discretion. But really, this is something to debut because out at the range, I mean, shooters caps at a range. It's like coffee with no creamer. It's a perfect match.
Yep. You got to be comfy and look good.
Exactly. Oh, exactly. Man, checking the comments. We've got plenty going on real quick. Excellent. So West Tennessee Vapors has us up on the big screen. So thank y'all for that. We hope that we are giving y'all a wonderful thing for the customers.
Hi, strategist. Hi, Mama Karen.
Then we got the Smoke Master himself telling us that he loves his hat, which we love seeing it on him.
Little Eddie.
Little Eddie. Little, but big in our hearts.
Yes.
So, and if I missed y'all in all the scrolling of comments here, I do apologize. I just don't want to keep giving y'all my backside as I lean over to check.
That's rude.
That's very rude.
Don't be rude.
Rude. There's how dare you? That's the one we need next. Stealing it. Anyway, before I get fired. So we'll have hats.
Poor.
Anyways. So we'll have plenty of hats available. We've still got a couple of the original style as well. But these new ones are going to have our most viewed, I'd say, emblem on them. They both came at the same time. It's just this one seemed to gain traction and really just fits print styles better. So we'll have plenty of them available. Also, we do have our Friends of the NRA events kicking back up. It's that time of year. We've been in contact with them. Princess Magpul has been, hard at work looking at how to get these things set up just so we can get them sent out. I think y'all like what we're putting in. We've changed the baskets up a little bit this year.
We have. They're a little bit more spicy.
Yes, a little more
spicy. I mean, they look better.
Well, and they've got some better stuff in them, too. Now they're coming with a coffee bean canister, with a scoop.
Yep, full of coffee.
Add
that in there.
Yes.
It's not just an empty can.
Here's the can, but you're going to have to buy
Nothing.
some. Give you the same satisfaction as drinking other coffee that we shall not name, like Cosmic Dollars.
Leaves your soul feeling empty because you don't have our coffee.
Exactly.
Jesus, you need to have Jesus to fill your soul.
The 2 things that we run on, Jesus and coffee. We've got the coffee gets me started, Jesus keeps me going. Even though I might change the words a little if I had made the plaque, but I still love it for how it is. So that's the event we have coming up. I think it's the second to last week in April on that Tuesday, 4 to 9. Come on out and see us. We'd love to see you there. Kind of see all of us in our element, just being out. And we may have a couple other announcements coming up in the future.
Yes.
As it pertains to the range, but we're going to keep y'all hanging for a little bit on that.
Yes.
So, moving from there, we have started to break into, I love tapping the table. I don't know why.
You should stop.
It's the Italian in me. No.
You should stop.
The wedding favors is something that we've now started getting into. So, a good friend of ours people in his family are getting married, and they've been nice enough to bless us with the opportunity to be a part in helping them design, make, provide favors for them. So we do coffee favors. So they're going to be smaller, little 2-ounce bags. Each bag gets you enough to brew one full pot like we do here, your 10-cup pot, 50 ounces. So if that's something y'all think you'd be interested in, Italian hands, Eddie called me out for it, and Mama Karen says that the emblem's easy to recognize, and that's it's a wonderful design choice, which we thank you for that, because Matt Challenger will love to hear that.
Yes, you worked very hard on it.
Yes. But the wedding favors, if there's and we can really make that work for any event. It's just trying to get something a little different. Everybody does chocolates, and everybody does like your nice candles, or like the glasses with like different stones, and like
chocolate or mints or bubbles,
and that's all well and good.
It's fine.
Leave it to the woman to give that. For me, it's like a color's a color. That one's red. That one's red. I don't know which one's darker, lighter. My point.
Incorrect.
But we're taking a fresh spin on it, and so just we can do K-cups, do our cartridges wrapped with your own custom sleeve. We can do custom labels on the bags. Princess Magpul and I did a mock-up the other night for this one we've got coming up, and man, they came out better than I thought they would.
They did. They really did.
I was really happy with it, and so I think if y'all decide to jump into it, we'd love to do it for you. We've got our name sitting with 2 wedding venues now, so you may come across us, and if you come across us, we can cater and we can make you favors.
And we're not looking to upcharge and have it cost you guys an arm and a leg. Weddings are already expensive enough. We understand the consumer, and the dollar doesn't go very far nowadays. So that being said, the coffee favors and things like that, they're not unreasonable. If I'm not mistaken, from the research we did, they're below the average cost of wedding favors and things like that. So just keep that in mind.
Yes, especially when you get into like the more niche. Like micro anything outlet,
because there are a couple of other places that do the coffee bags as favors, but they're expensive.
And we wanted to be cheaper. I guess one last announcement as of this morning. And it'll be starting next Monday. If you need to get your hair cut, we happen to know a wonderful barber in the town of Dyersburg. And that would be Valhalla Barbershop. So you may have seen they just moved. They're still downtown, but they moved from the one store a little bit down the way. The block over from where Mustard Company and Dave's on the Square is set up, they've got a new storefront. And starting next Monday, they'll actually have our coffee out there. So if you're looking to get your hair cut and you want to get a good cup of coffee, which, I mean, for me, if I'm doing something, I want a good cup of coffee.
If I can't get a stogie, next best thing is our coffee. So.
Which, you raise a valid point. Or all of them. All of it together. We'll work on that. That's the next one. But really, and Jordan down there, I mean, just wonderful people, real friendly. Just the short couple minutes I was in there earlier, just watching them figure out, specifically for the woman's son, like how they're going to get his haircut worked, and it was just watching, like, man, like they give a lot of thought. It's not just sit in the chair, snip, and go. Like they really, really, really get into making sure they do what you want. So if you're looking for that, another small business supporting another small business is how we're always going to promote. So go on out, give them a try out, get your hair cut.
You should go get your haircut there.
They told me I needed to.
Well, you should.
I'm working on it. My barber's booked.
That's why I say you should go support them instead. The original barber's awful.
Yeah, okay. Let me check in the comments real quick. Mama Karen says if it's just an extension of the love that we have through the wedding favors, they're a blessing.
Aww.
Which we appreciate that, because that really is the goal, right? It's, yes, these are business outlets, but more so these are more ways for us to be involved in our community. Like, it just, no one wants to sit there with their hands tied when someone's getting married. Like, that's something exciting. If it's something you can truly get behind, and the people, and everything sitting in it is good, and like it's something you want to be a part of, and we're just excited to help spread kind of that more loving side of our faith in that way. So with that being said, I think that pretty much wraps up our. You got anything you want to drop in before we hit the discussion?
Nope.
I'm just throwing you on the spot all day today. I'm having too much fun with this.
Please don't.
Well, since I'm not going to lean over and go and hit the button, we've got now the discussion of the week. Ooh. I figured if I faded into the mic, it would add a nice volume, a nice crescendo in there.
Probably not.
Probably not. But y'all can let me know in the comments. For today's discussion, we're going to go into talking about holidays and just kind of the lore behind them, different figures, and how we handle it with kids. And we wanna start this off by saying we understand a lot of people have a lot of different views, and we are not standing here saying our view is absolute, you have to follow, you have to this. But again, this is the thing that we like to do, is bring up these discussions, because if we are all relaxed with coffee, if we've already got a better mood because we're throwing around jokes, what better way to glorify God than take that time and sit and have a serious discussion about stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And so something that's been hitting, I know with me personally in the last 2 weeks or so, I don't know why, I don't really get it as much going into Christmas anymore. But going into Easter, it always seems to hit me, of the discussion about, okay, you've got some figure, right, that has been set up for a holiday. How do you handle it for your kids? And specifically with Easter. Now, for me, I'm used to, y'all can guess as it is, we're Christians. So naturally, I know, shocker. So naturally, if you start putting anything before God in terms of a celebration, we're going to have questions.
Yeah.
But I think more specifically, right behind it, I would say, is the question of, okay, Easter. It's always Jesus or the Easter Bunny. And some people do both, but Jesus, we know, and we have the evidence that we need to establish the faith for us to know that he is real.
Mm-hmm.
The Easter Bunny. You start talking about that with kids, and I guess my question is that something that you do with your kids? If so, do you do the dress up and just let it all just kind of be something fun? Because I know there's the Easter egg hunts, and don't get me wrong, there's something adorable about seeing a bunch of little kids waddle around a lawn looking for these little eggs, and they get their little stuff and their tchotchkes and they run off. But what are you telling them about that supposed Easter Bunny?
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that you are telling them is real? Then you get to the Tooth Fairy, you get to this, like the Sandman, you get to all these different lores, holiday based or not. What do you do with your kids about them? Do you instill in them that they're true, or do you not? Now, if anyone's got kids watching, I guess this would be a good time to say, just out of respect for everybody, this should probably be left for, if it were my kids, I'd have my daughter on here as well. But if you stand in a different place, probably a point to say, let's just have the adults on for a little while. Because we'll now that we've made that assertion, we'll say that because it's for us, it's not I know for me personally, I want to know your thoughts too, but for me personally, that was something I have a hard time teaching on a creature that isn't true as if they're true, just based on the lying aspect.
Yeah. Well, that's a bigger one for me. There are a couple of different things, but first and foremost for me, it's the reality of it is that you are telling a lie, whether it be the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, whatever it be. It's a lie. That thing does not exist. It's there, and it's not even up for debate of nobody really no, it doesn't exist.
No evidence.
It's make believe. It's not true. Specifically realistically, when you look at all of them, but specifically with Santa, right? I think a lot of parents, they don't take it seriously as far as really kind of explaining to their kids what the whole lore and the fantasy that Santa is. Because one of the bigger problems I have with it is you've got this gigantic man who comes down your chimney once a year, and if you've been good, you get rewarded. If you've been bad, you get punished. And so now all of a sudden kids are, I gotta make sure I'm acting real good and I'm doing all these things so that I get all these gifts from Santa and things like that. And you're turning him into a deity at that point.
Yeah, you are.
Your child is looking up and hoping that their good behavior will get them something in return from this make-believe thing that does not exist. That's a huge problem for me. They should be looking to the Lord and looking at themselves and saying, okay, how am I, if I'm a Christian, even as kids, I don't care what age you are.
Yep.
Bible doesn't give us a set age on, when that
Josiah
understanding
was
comes.
9. Jeremiah was 9, I believe.
Yep. And so it's putting that out there. But your kids should be looking to Christ as that example. They should be looking at, as far as their character and their behavior, not banking on getting something good for doing those things. It should be solely based on the Bible. And another thing I was going to add into when you were talking, and just like folklores and things like that, the thing that really irritates me as well are the astrological signs. I hate them with a passion. Okay, quote me on that. Hate it. Absolutely hate it.
Writing it down.
Because the thing that's kind of stemmed from it is people make jokes about, oh, well, my personality is this way because I'm this astrological sign and these are the characteristics of. No, that's just how God made you, and you're using that as an excuse for your behavior and your attitude. So, no, knock it off. Because I remember your daughter at one point when we had her, because her mom's real big into all that goofy nonsense, and she was not being patient. And that's one thing that when she's around and she and I are doing something together, and she's not being patient, I sing her a little song, tell her we gotta be patient, and you gotta have patience. And she kept saying, but I don't have patience, because she's whatever astrological sign. And I told her straight up, I was like, no, that's a lie. that's just a flaw in your character that you need to work on.
Patience is a virtue for everyone. I don't think anyone's born just patient.
I was like, she said something about the astrological signs, and again, told her point blank, I'm like, no, that's just an excuse people use to justify their bad behavior.
Well, and I guess that's even my bigger question when I get into all of this. You talk about justifying bad behavior or justifying some kind of behavior. When we get into astrological signs or mythic folklore, whatever it is, why don't we just give the truth? I know a lot of people get caught up in wanting to do, and I say caught up, I don't necessarily mean it negatively. I guess maybe I kind of do. I don't mean it to be negative towards people, but I just mean it as a thing of, why are we going to put an experience before what's right?
Yep.
And so you think about it, whether you are Christian, Islamic, whatever your background is, if you have some belief in, I mean, even atheists, you still have belief in something, right? And they'll be the first to tell you that. Mm-hmm. If you pose to your child, believe in these things, and then they either find out after the fact or you tell them or whatever that it's not real, all you've really, especially with Santa, all you've really instilled in them is there's this thing you can believe in. You need to be good because of it. Okay, now it's not real. So now the kids are smart, and they're going to make the connection of, oh, so mommy and daddy are going to tell me that something has to be followed just so I obey them. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's going to cause the kid to question them with everything after that.
Yep. It was talking with Matt Chowser before he left, because he sadly, I don't remember if we actually said, but he had to go into work early today for Tyson. So that's why we are short one Misfit for the triple threat on this last Monday of the month. But one of the things he'd said when he was talking with, I think it was one of his older youth pastors or something, that the guy had made the comment he'd said, I made sure I wrote it down because I wanted it verbatim.
Excellent.
Just because it's perfect. Said, when people say it's a good story, like the Easter Bunny or Santa, and they make that statement in relation to Jesus, if you are going to bring up,
take my cup and smash it.
Well, but that's exactly what happens. I love this mug, but I would smash it too, because when you look at it, if you're going to tell them that this Santa's real, right, and we're not saying that there's anything wrong with, because I honestly, if someone really wants to go along with the, okay, we're going to dress up and have fun for this one day, is that really a problem? I don't see it as a problem. If all you're doing is just enjoying a folklore, there's nothing behind it, I guess you could even still technically pull problems out of it. But it all really depends on the heart.
I think it should be left out of the church.
Yes. Oh, 100%. I'm talking like families in their homes as a fun tradition, because at that point, a lot of the Jewish holidays are really no different.
Well, I was going to ask you too, growing up Messianic, because I don't know if you've actually ever explained. If you have, I don't remember. I have the brain of a fruit fly. But what was it like for, I guess, growing up Messianic as far as Christmas? Because I know you celebrated Hanukkah. But did you do anything with Christmas? And what did you do at Easter?
That's a good one. Real quick, Mad Chancellor, hi. He
Hello.
is on. And he was telling us to make sure we count to 3 for throwing hand grenades for Easter bunnies.
I'm just going to replace the eggs with hand grenades, Eddie.
Well, Mad Chancellor says 4 is too much, but 5 is just right. I'm pretty sure there's the Monty Python buried in here. The number to which we shall count is 3. That's one of my favorite scenes. Anyway, as a Messianic Jew, I mean, my mother was Roman Catholic.
Right.
My father was Orthodox Jewish. Right. And so as we've recounted,
then they were the Brady Bunch.
Right. Excellent. But they when they married and they were looking at where they were going to settle, they fell on Messianic Judaism, which right. I mean, really, it pulls from both. And my dad, God opened his eyes, and he really started running towards the Bible. Right. We were allowed to keep Christmas, and that's it. So when it came to Easter, we did nothing for it. So like I knew that people had Easter egg hunts. I knew that those things were there, but for us, at the same time, Passover's going on. And this is kind of the same. It seems like you find with a lot of the major ones, you've got Christmas. You're either celebrating Santa or you're celebrating Jesus. You get to Easter Sunday time, you're either celebrating the Easter Bunny or you're celebrating Jesus. And so my parents were very firm on we're not even playing around with that. We're going to push all that to the side. We'll make our own traditions. So for Passover, seeing as it's the Feast of Unleavened Bread, you as a firm practicing Jew, you would have no bread at all during that week. My mom would actually take pieces of bread and right leading into, because you're supposed to purify the house. Right. By removing it all for the week of Passover. Right. She would take pieces of bread and hide them around the house. And then we'd have to go around with a feather duster and a plate. And I kid you not, a feather.
She tricked you into cleaning the house. 32 years later, you realize it.
She's a smart Italian mom. She got her money's worth. But and the thing that it was to teach, and again, it was even as a kid, I know it can get blurred even with Judaism on what you're affirming at that point. Like, are you focusing on the law or are you focusing on the spirit of it? Right. And my parents were still, at least from what I took away, whether it was how my parents did it or how God allowed me to interpret it, I was pretty good with separating it this is something we're observing to remember what God has done. But so we didn't touch Easter. We didn't even dye eggs. That wasn't something I did until I think I got my first Easter basket when I was like 14.
I don't think I've ever had an Easter basket.
And it was with my stepdad, my now father. After
that makes sense.
My father passed 2 years later, mom remarries, and there you go. And it was more of it was like the first year of, okay, I've never had kids. I now have kids. What do I do for the kids? Right. So he went through and I respect it. He's trying to figure it out. Yeah. We didn't have to, we'd sometimes get stuff afterwards, but even now my parents aren't. They'll always send a gift, like a gift basket or something for Christmas with homemade Italian cookies, which are delicious. But nothing for Easter. And Mad Chancellor's asking if we put our Easter basket on a big wheel and ride in style. Sounds wonderful.
Who told you I took Aiden's big wheel?
And Smoke Master already said he's writing down the feather duster thing in his parent notebook. TM trademark Mama Simons. But so we never entertained Santa. I guess roundabout way to answer. Yeah. Never entertained Santa, never entertained the Easter Bunny, because my parents didn't want to detract from focusing on God in those points. And again, understand that even some people watching may not be Christian, which, I mean, it would swell our hearts beyond joy to see you have that understanding. But I think this is even if you're not looking at it with a Christian lens, the question of what trust are you building with your children? And that's the thing that I would pose as my only big question to someone. If you're going to be okay with your child believing that something like Santa or the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, believing that they're real, how do you handle when they find out they're not? Mm-hmm. And how do you handle it with them? Mm-hmm. Do you just let them find out and then say, ha, gotcha, and it's, you hope they're going to understand? I mean, you're watching these movies where, to a kid, it's devastating when Santa's going to jail. Because they're like, oh my gosh, where am I? But they're focusing on the presents. Mm-hmm. And so I know there's so many family traditions that go in with them, but do those really outweigh what you could build with your family without them? that's always the thing that I sit on, because I know for me, with my daughter, it's I make sure she understands that they're not, that none of those things are real, because and praise the Lord, the thing I've wanted is the thing that sits with her. When Daddy speaks, she trusts me, because she knows that if I'm telling her something to the best of my knowledge, I know that it's right. And if I find out I'm wrong, I'm going to go back to her and tell her, Daddy was wrong. There's no way to do that if you could argue it's just Santa, okay, but what about the Easter Bunny? But what about the Tooth Fairy? But what about, and so then you try and, let's say you're a Christian parent, you then try and say, here's the God that I believe in. And they've already come from losing all of these mythical figures. So then the first question is, where's my proof?
Yep.
How do I know you're not lying to me?
Yeah.
Well, here's what I've got. And you open the Bible and you walk them through it. Okay, Mom, okay, Dad, but where's the physical evidence? Where is Jesus? Well, I can't show him to you. Well, then I'm not going to believe you, because the Bible is saying the same thing that you told me with Santa. Be good, obey me, and you'll get presents, you'll get prizes, you'll get everything. And you just set them on a course to not have faith, because you destroyed their faith.
Well, it realistically, you're bringing up a child that, which is good and bad, but they're going to go into everything with a skeptical eye, which is a good thing in today's world, with everything that gets thrown at us and it's marketed as true and accurate.
No.
You should have that. And even with the Bible, not a skeptical lens.
It's a
but it should be critical.
Critical thinking.
It should be
lens.
critical thinking.
Yes. Has to be.
I lost my train of thought.
Boo.
You go on. It'll come back to me.
That's where you need the soundboard again. But because you do, and that's Matt Chauser and I were talking about that right before we left. Like there's a difference there's a difference between just straight up skepticism and a lens of critical thinking. You want to breed that in your child, but you don't want it to be a thing of, well, I'm critically thinking because my parent has a past history of lying, or a past history of, if we don't want to call it lying because that seems too harsh, fine, it's dishonesty. We can call it dishonesty, and that's objective. You are being dishonest with your when you trick someone, even when it's for a joke, it's still dishonesty. Yeah. It's just a dishonesty that friends will accept because you're having a joke. But when you don't set that boundary, and because Santa, like the way people run with Santa, and the way I've seen some people run with the Easter Bunny, it doesn't really just stop at just, this is a fun thing. I mean, Santa's full on, again, you need to behave for 364 days out of the year, so that 365 you get your presents. Otherwise, you're getting coal. And I don't.
And they go so far as to put the cookies and the milk out, and
you make it real.
Reindeer poop and the markings and the snow outside, and like some parents will go the extra mile to make sure that their kids are completely immersed in the fantasy of what it is, which is sad. I understand some of the hearts and the intent behind doing it, but that doesn't negate the reality of it, though. Right. It's gonna leave a lot of room for, again, as we've been discussing, just your kid's probably going to question you on everything after this. You went to all these great lengths to make it seem like there was something when there was nothing, and now they don't know what to believe. And if you do tell them something that does seem kind of off the wall, and it could be true, they're gonna sit there and question you left, right, and center, or just completely reject you, depending on how far you went with your lies and how long it went on. They could just completely reject you.
Perfect backwards example. So my daughter, I'd say about 2 weeks, when we talk at night, her and her friends have been into things of like tricking each other. Like someone will put I remember messing around with this stuff when I was a kid. You'd get but now it's easier. You can go on YouTube and pull up something that looks like someone's programming with the black screen with the green text, and it looks like you're hacking. So they'll put that up on their screen and send it to their friends and go, "Look, I'm hacking." Or they'll grab a fake plant and be like, "Look at this real plant that I have in my room." And what's the objective? You get them to believe it just so you can shut them down and go, "Nope, psych, I was kidding."
Children are strange.
Children are strange, but we all
what
did
happened to
it.
the whoopee cushion? Bring that back.
Make whoopee cushions great again.
Fake vomit. Bring those things back.
Oh man, fake dog poop. That was when we had 5 dogs in the house. Fake dog poop went a long way. But you look at it, and so when she's been telling me stuff, she's done it once or twice. So last night she was telling me, "Daddy, this plant's real." Now, mind you, she had already told me it was fake like a week ago, so I knew. But she'd said it was real, and I was like, "Okay, sweetie, like, do you promise me that it's real?" I was like, "Because you've been telling me that it's fake. I mean, you've been telling me things, and then I say, okay, I trust you on it because it's your word, and then you go, I was just kidding, I tricked you," which is fine. As on the top surface, that's fine. But if you dig deeper, even me in that moment, I couldn't trust her.
Mm-hmm.
I trust my daughter's word, but when it came to something like that, I couldn't trust her.
Well, I mean, sorry, I don't want to.
No. Go ahead.
Recounting your story, but I think that's the thing. People, they don't really put much thought into as far as lying goes. They look at other things. People do it about drugs. This is a gateway drug to get you to this and this and this and this and this. And I don't say it that way as, to kind of trivialize it or anything. But the reality is, all right, you go around tricking your friends, tricking your siblings, your parents, and it's, oh, ha, 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 it's so cute. But then, depending on the child, realistically, because lying is a sin. We all know this. And
right.
And everyone sins. Some of us struggle with other sins more than others. Lying is one that people can struggle with, myself included. And that realistically is just a gateway into digging yourself deeper and deeper, deeper into that sin. Because you start with the tricking and, oh, I got you, ha, ha, ha. Mm-hmm. But I meant no evil intent behind it, therefore it's okay. You could have meant no evil intent. That is true. But that just gets you comfortable with. Exactly. Well, mom and dad wanted to know if I took this one thing from the kitchen or their room or whatever it be. No, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. Okay. And then it just starts to progress and progress. I told my friends that I went to the aquarium this weekend. I stayed home all weekend, though. Yeah. Like, it just starts to progress and progress and progress until you're lying about anything and everything. Yep. And trust and believe there's someone that the man Chasler knows that this person lies left, right, and center, and you don't know what to believe. You don't know what to you can't trust him. And the things that he's lying about, it makes no sense. It makes no sense to lie about them. Right. Like, just the lie isn't making the truth, like, it's not impacting the truth. The truth would have been just fine. There's nothing wrong with the true answer. But you decided to lie about it, which just makes it worse now.
And I think that's the bigger thing, is when you start lying about things where it doesn't matter. That's exactly, you don't have to not tell the truth. You're not even going to be looked disfavorably on if you lied if you told the truth in this instance, but you choose to lie anyway. And this is where we have to step back to the basis of your thinking, which for us is firm and always Christianity. I mean, first and foremost, and I always quote it as New King James, no matter, even though I was raised Jewish, thou shalt not. I always say thou shalt not. But I don't know if it's a reverence thing for me or what, but in my mind, but thou shalt not kill. I mean, thou shalt not lie. You cannot lie. Like, it's, we get 10 commandments that are supposed to be a summary of the 612 commandments throughout the Bible, and one of them is do not lie. Mm-hmm. So, knowing that that's a slippery slope that our kids can fall into, where they then start lying about things that don't even warrant, humanistically speaking, a lie, why would we lie to our kids?
Well, to quote one of my favorite pastors, your children are vipers in diapers. So they're already, not that they're off to a bad start, but they're already starting from like negative, 15, right? So you need to teach those things to your kids. You need to instill those things, regardless of their actions, their attitudes, whatever it be. They could be an absolute little hellion, and you want to rip your hair out, but that doesn't negate the charge that you're given as a parent. Yep. You need to instill those values. You need to instill those things so that, Lord willing, as they progress and they grow up, they're leaning on God's word and His wisdom, and not their own understanding of the world. And realistically, we're seeing a lot of people leaning on their own understanding instead of on God's word. Yep. And the Bible tells us too that wisdom from above is Dang it, Josh isn't here. I need you, Matt Chasler. Book of James. Essentially, the wisdom from above is pure and good, and anything from the world is demonic and evil.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of people going to the world for advice and wisdom and guidance and things like that. Case in point, astrological signs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to make sure that my partner and I are compatible, so let's take his birthday and my birthday and see if we're compatible, and we're not compatible, it's not going to work.
Because God's limited by that.
What? Like, how about you look at his characteristics and who he is as a person, and then look at yourself, and then come back to, then go together and decide.
Yep.
Like,
real quick, Matt Chasler did a full of mercy and good fruits. Sincere is what the
thank you, sir.
What James says. But
Thank
also
you.
he wanted to he's putting down all the fruits of the spirit, I think.
Oh,
Pure,
excellent.
peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits. That's all the things that describe the word of God. That's what it is. I remember this now. Yeah. But he also said no, God spoke to Moses in King James. So. One of my favorite things that people say. The description in James. Sorry, follow in the comments, but that's the description in James.
Thank you, Matt Chasler.
Yes, thank you, sir. But it's just, I guess that's the thing for me. It's what is I say for me, for all of us realistically, because I know this is where we stand because we've talked about these things. But what is your end goal with your child?
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's like if it's just if your end goal isn't trying to take into account how they're going to act later based on what you're doing now, then sure, you do as you please. But if you are like us, where your goal with a child is to train them up in the way they should go, I would encourage you to take a step back, and if you're a single parent, just pray about it yourself. If you're married, then get with your spouse and figure that out and talk and figure out like why are we doing this? Why are we telling our child that these things exist when they don't? Mm-hmm. Because to me, and if this comes off rough, I'm sorry, but I do feel I'm justified in saying this. If your focus is to create something for the child to have fun, then it's either something selfish, because you're looking to satisfy something in yourself of what you want to give to the child. It's either something selfish, or you're trying to put a good experience for them ahead of the experiences that they need.
Yep.
It's gonna come down to one of those two. Please, if you have other views, please put them in the comments, because again, this is open discussion, right? I'm hard pressed to see any other way, because if you're going to stray from the truth for any reason, I mean, you could almost go as far as to say you shouldn't even allow your kids to trick people. I'm not going to go that far, because the fact of the matter is we do enjoy pulling one over on someone, but there's a difference. There's a heart attitude behind there too. Allowing a child to believe for the first 9 years of their life, first 10 years of their life, that something is completely real, that you put money and time and effort and consistency into, only to rip it out from under them, you're killing your own credibility. Mm-hmm. Why would they believe you?
Well, not only that too, if your child the assumption is that all of these gifts were given to them by some deity, they're now putting all their hope and faith in that, only to find out years later that thing doesn't actually exist. It was mom and dad all along. They're going to expect all of those things later on in life, regardless of Santa being there or not. Now you've set that with your kids. There's no understanding of like mom and dad, we sacrificed and we got you these things. Like it wasn't easy, and this is, we're doing this for you, as, just because, whatever. But there's a good chance that going on in life, they're going to assume that they deserve all those things because it was just given to them.
Right.
So why would they expect anything less? I can think of a few families who've done that with their kid or kids, and you can already see the wheels turning in the child and the behavior of the expectation that, well, I want this, so I'm going to get it. I don't really care what it costs or what you have to do for it, mom and dad. I want this, so you need to give it to me. No, wrong. Wrong, child. If I give you something, you're going to understand that there was sacrifice there.
No. You're going to understand the source. You're going to understand everything that went into it, the love, the responsibility, the discipline, and you're not going to think it came from something for free.
Mm-hmm.
Mama Karen chimed in with something I think is, I want to read. I got to scroll back up, though. Because I think it's a good one to hit. She's saying culturally, the holidays are always mentioned with and around kids from their peers and other influences. Of all the fairy tales, there were specific fairy tales to be aside from the only thing that takes just a little bit of true faith to believe in, being our Lord and Savior.
Well, and which reminds me, thank you, Mama Karen, which reminds me of another thought that I had earlier. My question for parents who espouse the Easter Bunny and Santa and run full force with it with their children, and you're professing Christians, my question to you is, have you told your children the truth in regards to Santa not being real? And if you have, how did you do it? But also, how are you presenting God's word to them? How are you teaching them about Jesus? Because if you're gonna lie and make up this big old fantasy about Santa, how are you teaching and describing Jesus? Is it the same romanticized, beautiful, God is love and that's all he is kind of thing? Or are you teaching him the truth directly from God's word? Because at least for me, if you're able to romanticize and look so whatever at Santa, understanding that, he sees you when you're sleeping and he, all of those things that describes to a degree our Savior, that's how you describe this thing. How are you describing and teaching Jesus? How are you handling that? Like that's what I would like to know, because my gut feeling is that this is also romanticized, that there is no punishment, there is no negativity. It's only, all the beautiful and all the love and the rose-colored glasses and things like that. And we know as Christians that's not true.
Biblical at all.
No.
Honestly, that's a point I didn't even consider. But that's a very fair point, because we really, in essence, I mean, we've talked about we've talked about before, I don't know if we've done it live, but at least in terms of in the realm of how God tells us we are to walk and witness and with children, with others, the moment we create in our minds a God that is God minus some qualities, we've now created an idol. We've created an idol that is of something that we want to follow ourselves. So if we turn to our children, Noah's Ark, look how beautiful an event that this was. You get to see all the animals and the rainbow. How about all the people that died?
Yeah.
The fact that the entirety of the planet was wiped out, save for one family and a plethora of animals. Like we don't ever discuss that. It's romanticized. I remember when shortly after it was just my daughter and I had to go back and look and realized, shoot, the Bible that we've got for her that we're reading, understood reading straight, going through full chapters is difficult with a 3-year-old. That's why you break things down, but you still have to preserve what God's trying to teach us in these stories. And if you read Noah's Ark out of most children's books, you miss the whole point. They're a bunch of smiling people walking around, building this big boat. They get on the boat, they go for a cruise for 40 days, all you can eat buffet, they get off on a mountain and they're done. That's not what it was.
I'd love to hear them tell their children the Judges chapter 5. I can't think of which verse it is.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear the romanticized version of that.
You're talking about the recircumcision, or
no.
I
believe it's Judges 5.
I'm trying to remember which one.
With Deborah and
Yep.
When the enemy flees and seeks refuge in the tent.
Yeah, I think it's
and
stake driven through their head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear their romanticized recount of that, but
I guess that's the problem, right? Is you won't find one.
Nope.
Because we keep that from our kids.
Well, how many people actually, adults, know that in the Bible?
Right. Which and that's not. I mean, we
plenty. It's not a knock at anyone, because there are still things that you and Matt Chazler will reference, and I'm like,
there's things you've referenced before, and I'm like, I know I've heard that vaguely somewhere, but I mean, but that's natural. We should be constantly having a heart to seek and go find, because we will read something and not get any of it, because that day we had a bad day, we're feeling sick, we're tired. Then you read it the next time, you're like, how did I miss this?
Yeah. Yep.
But when we get to the romanticized things, if you're going to romanticize Christianity, you're not doing anything different than someone telling a kid that they're Santa and then ripping the rug out from under them. Go ahead.
Nope, you finish.
I need a sip of coffee. You go ahead.
Excellent. Well, I was just thinking too, just thinking about the Christmas movies that I remember watching as a kid or being on the TV and you just kind of, leave it on or whatever. But how many of those movies show kids kneeling at the side of their bed talking to Santa as if they were praying to him?
Yep.
And how many children do that in real life because of the lie that their parents have told them? Now they're praying to Santa, asking for all these things and recounting all the ways that they've been good and apologizing for the things that they've done that's wrong. Like, it's as I've gotten older, because I'll fully admit when I was younger, and I did not have the walk that I have now, but I was kind of indifferent with it. For me personally, I wasn't going to teach my kids about it, but I didn't feel the need to speak out against it or really give my 2 cents if someone was talking about it or whatever it be. But now it's the seriousness in which I take my walk with Christ. I can't not let those things just kind of pass by. Right. Like if God allows the opportunity for me to speak up on it, I want to speak up on it, and I should speak up on it. But it's and I understand too that the lure started, I believe it was in Germany, with Kris Kringle and doing all of that. As far as we know, that happened, though I don't know what documentation we have to back it up. Had I known this was the topic, I would have done a little research. But that being said, my point being is, someone could argue and say, well, there's no evidence that the Bible is accurate and correct, and that, Jesus ever walked this earth, and that there is a creator, but the fact of the matter is we do. There's a lot of evidence that points to the validity of the Bible. And again, we've said it pretty much on every live, whether it be me, you, Mad Chazler, we've all said it, and it gets said every Monday. That the Bible is a historical document. And I remember hearing that from Ken Ham, with Creations in Genesis, I believe is the name. I don't know. My brain's kind of spacey today. That's how he refers to the Bible, as a historical document. And I remember watching him speak one day, and I heard him reference it that way, and I was like, no, he's absolutely right. It is a historical document. Because some Christians will struggle of what do you call the Bible other than the Bible? Like, what is it? Is it a storybook? Like a lot of people like to assert and make the statement and claim, or, what is it? Is it, but the fact of the matter is it is a historical document. Right. And we've got archaeological evidence to back up what went on during that time period in that time frame. It's not like there isn't any evidence, and it's solely we're going off of blind faith here. God has provided us with that physical evidence, just realistically to combat those who question and call into question God's word and our faith and everything. So
and I think it then raises the point of, okay, there's, objectively speaking, there's more evidence that proves more of the Bible true than there is evidence that proves the existence of Santa.
Absolutely.
Or the existence of the Easter Bunny.
Absolutely.
So then the question of, okay, why do kids believe one so readily and the other they don't? Which then goes right back to the answer that we've also talked a lot about, of the heart of man. Mm-hmm. It's, if you tell someone, hey, if you're good, I'm going to give you money. They may not know you, but dang it, they're probably going to follow. Mm-hmm. And they're going to do their best, and just holding out hope of, hey, if I struggle with this for a couple days and just make sure that I'm extra polite and hold the door open for this old lady and sweep this thing up that I didn't spill, you mean to tell me you might give me $100?
Yeah.
Sure. Like, I'm going to get a new game system? Sign me up.
Mm-hmm.
But then you pose the same thing of, hey, you need to obey your parents. You need to do the things that you are tasked with. You need to be a good steward of your bedroom, make your bed, like do these things, keep things tidy, keep things in order, keep yourself healthy, be polite, be respectful, and you'll get paradise in the end. I can't hold paradise in my hands, so now as a kid I'm saying, whatever, I'll deal with that later, it's not worth it.
Yeah, or when God calls you home, you're going to face judgment. Okay. I don't know what that looks like or what, I don't know how the description given or anything like that, but my feeble mind, it doesn't seem all that bad, so I'll deal with it when I get there.
Yeah.
No.
Or
don't do that.
You don't want that. When adults
No.
when adults say that, like, oh, I'll take it up with God when I die. Man, I would not wish that on anybody.
No.
That every time you say that, you actually have to go take it up with God, because we're gonna have to stand there and take it up with God one-on-one, and we know that it's gonna be I was listening this morning to Pastor Paul Washer talking about if you had a screen up, right, and you could say the same thing to kids. They say it with Santa, but let's picture your creator, and someone puts a big screen up right now and begins to play a reel of all of your thoughts day to day. How fast you would get out of that room. He was saying that the people who are your best friends now probably wouldn't be by the time they finished hearing it.
Yeah.
Understanding who we are.
Yep.
And so going back to your statement about excuses, we can take things one of two ways. We can allow those excuses of, oh, well, I'm going to be extra good for this, and I wasn't good because of that, or we can hold them to a standard of, hey, you're not going to be perfect, but here's your bar. I'm setting your bar for you. It's just like we do when we talk about our children meeting a spouse. I'm going to set the bar for you. Meet or exceed it. Do not go below it, because you're going to have a lot worse down here. At least meet it if you don't exceed it. And at that point, you're set.
Mm-hmm.
All we should be aiming to teach our kids is that we're not the first generation to say this, and most people in our generation probably won't, but our kids are not our best friends. That is not the goal. You can have a wonderful friendship, and they talk about the relationships of mothers to daughters and sons to fathers and daughters to fathers. And it's true. In a proper setting, they look beautiful. But when you allow that to supersede what you're trying to teach, now you've hit a problem, because that same kid that you're trying to keep as your friend, as someone you're trying to create these positive experiences for, they're going to get older, they're going to become a teenager, they're going to go through the phase where they think they know everything, and in their minds they know everything, and you're rejected. Why? Because when they were 8, they realized at that point that something so dumb as a dude who flies around with a bunch of reindeer that somehow propels him through the sky, landed on his roof, got into his house through a chimney that didn't exist on the house anyway, and left a bunch of presents. Because you allowed them to believe that, there's a good chance that they're now going to take that as, well, I can't trust mom and dad, so I'll have to find someone else to go ask my hard life questions to. Mm-hmm. And we cannot allow anyone else to teach our kids.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think going off of that point too, because I know Mad Chowser has mentioned this a few times, and we've had a couple of conversations regarding it. And I say it whenever Christmas is around the corner and whenever Easter is around the corner. The thing that frustrates me, and I know it frustrates him, and I know you as well, that we only really discuss the birth of Jesus around Christmas. We only talk about his death at Easter, when those are two things that should be on our minds throughout the year, and it should never be one without the other, right? They both should be sitting on our minds wholeheartedly. And you've got Christmas songs and carols that you typically sing around Christmas. Why? As Ahmed Chowser has said a number of times, some of those songs are theologically deep and sound, and they shouldn't just be sung at Christmas. They should be sung throughout the year, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. Yeah. Same thing with certain songs that you only really sing around Easter, and think, why? Why is it only applicable for one day out of the year? Why? When if we're stating that this is true 365 days out of the year, why are we limiting it to just one day to sing about it and to discuss it and really discuss it in depth? Why do we only talk about the death, or the crucifixion of Jesus realistically once or twice a year? And I say that because some churches do Good Friday service, and then you've got your Sunday morning Easter service. Why are we limiting it to one day? Same thing with Christmas. Why are we limiting that to one day out of the year?
Especially when we don't limit Santa to one day of the year.
No.
You may only see decorations and all at one point of the year, but we tell our kids, they're working, the elves are working all year round, making toys, and Santa's watching his list all year round. If you do something wrong in June, it matters in December. If you do something wrong in October or January, it still matters in December. So for Santa, we'll go that far. But then when it gets to an actual principle, we won't apply it. One of my favorite songs, Behold the Lamb, I'd never heard until first year of being out here and doing a cantata at the church and hearing it in the Easter cantata. And you don't hear the song much else again other than during a cantata, unless you're us, because we sing it and play it and everything as much as we possibly can. But I remember it just, you get to the chorus, behold the Lamb, the story of redemption written on his hands. We only talk about that at Easter because we're only looking at his resurrection during Easter. Meanwhile, the thing I've noticed is that if you're listening to sound doctrine, right, and you're following pastors and you're surrounded by people who are deep in sound doctrine, you are hearing about Christ's death and resurrection constantly, because you cannot bring up his word without it tying back, without it being a focal point. You can't talk about why you would be obeying your parents, or why it is important to not lie to children and adults alike, unless you could point it back to because there was one that lived perfect and died so that we would even be here and have a chance of not just burning when we're done. It just, so, yeah. It just, it and I guess that's why I say this isn't a thing to beat people over the head. It's more so, if you do, please, again, leave something in the comments, watching live or later. If you are good with giving that to your children, we're genuinely curious as to why. Because again, this is you always have a view, and until you hear other sides, you've got nothing else to consider.
Yeah.
This is us presenting our side of this, is especially as Christians and as responsible parents, which for us is under Christ. We don't believe that there is room, especially with all the stuff going on in the world right now, and such an attack going on children in the world right now, and the biblical charge that if you're going to let a little one stumble, better off that you have a millstone tied around your neck, as the Bible gives very plainly how severely it protects children. Is this really an area where, even if you can justify it, is it really worth it?
Because that's I know for me, I don't have children, but Lord willing, one day when if he allows, I'm not going to be ignorant and not mention Santa at all to my kids, because that would be equally as stupid, because then they're going to hear it from their friends or someplace else, and then they're going to come back and question me like, well, Mom, why don't we do this? I'm getting made fun of. I don't know who this is. What's this about? And X, Y, and Z. I'm going to tell them about Santa, but I'm not going to romanticize, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They will know that this is something that other people partake in and believe, but understand that this is all a lie and it's not true.
Yep.
If you get gifts on Christmas, it's not coming from anyone other than what God allowed Mom and Dad to give to you, plain and simple. Because again, it should go back to God. It shouldn't be, this is what Mom, me and Dad bought you, and we spent our money and time and whatever. No, God allowed us to give this to you.
Yep.
This is, and as far as, but that's how it handled Christmas. But the emphasis would be on Christ, but not just his birth on that day. Those things are going to be emphasized and taught throughout the year. Because again, for me personally, I don't feel like it's something that should be taught one day out of the year, As far as Easter goes, I never grew up with any Easter traditions. My Easter tradition was being in church on a Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 4 days in a row, because my family and I were involved with worship. Those, Easter being a big celebration, our church always did, a pretty large scale. They never did a cantata, but there was always a lot of there was an emphasis and a big thing with the worship. We had our orchestra, because the church that I used to attend, we had enough people that attended the congregation that played other, orchestral instruments like, strings and woodwinds and things like that. So that was always a really big thing. We had the choir plus all these, additional instruments, and, our worship pastor would always pick these pretty, extravagant choir pieces, and, that's what we would do. It would be a little more scaled back on Friday for the Good Friday service, but Sunday was always a really big, a bigger deal. But growing up as a kid, that's what my Easter weekend looked like, was a lot of practicing and a lot of time being in church. We never did anything as far as Easter. I've never had an Easter basket in my life, so that's foreign to me. Of course, we always we did color eggs and things like that, but it was never. We never colored them without the understanding of truly what Easter is focused on. My mom actually had an egg carton she picked up from one of the Christian bookstores that was near my house, and I was just a wee little ass. And inside each egg had different items from the crucifixion and things like that, and it taught the touch about the resurrection of Christ and all of that. So I remember that as a kid with Easter. And then we had family who lived out in the boonies on a big old farm, and the Saturday before Easter they would invite family and friends, and they'd have a huge meal, and then they'd hide like a couple thousand eggs all over the property and the farm, and all the kids would have to go and find them. But I was a little too old for it at that point once they started doing it and things like that. But that's the extent of, growing up, my upbringing with Easter. But if you were to ask me though, it's always been church. that weekend spent at church. In fact, the reason why we didn't start going to the Easter gatherings on Saturdays with our family until later on is because we were always busy and preoccupied on a Saturday. It wasn't until we no longer had to kind of shuffle all of our equipment to like a larger auditorium, because we would always have to rent out a gymnasium from one of the high schools, just because we didn't want to have multiple services, and we wanted to have the entire church congregation in one service. And so it was a lot of setting up and helping and giving of your time and things like that. So once we moved into our new building and we didn't have to do all that, it was just show up for practice and that was it. We were able to start attending.
Well, I realize this has no bearing, but figure as we're nearing the end, I'm just curious. I'm curious. I'm sure people might be, but more so I am. When you got old enough and you noticed all the things that you didn't do as a kid, did you find that you missed it at all, or that you wished you? And not saying that puts a nail in a coffin or anything. It's just I'm more curious. I want to get more people's thoughts on. Okay, if you didn't have it, and you found out about it, what were your feelings about it after the fact?
Yeah, no, it held no bearing on anything. It didn't bother me in the slightest. It didn't make me question anything as far as, well, why don't my parents do that? Well, I never got that. Well, that's just not fair. None of that was present at all. And then even with Christmas, because from what I remember as a kid, my oldest sister believed in Santa. I think my parents did kind of play that whole game with her. But when my twin and I were born and were around, we never did. There was no mention of Santa or he's bringing the gifts. You can't wake up. That I remember always knowing that it was my parents. Yeah. But we still put out cookies and milk and things like that. But we understood that my dad was going to eat it, because at one point he was like, Santa says he wants steak and beer next year. And we're like, okay, Dad. But I always had the understanding that it was my parents doing it, which honestly I am incredibly grateful for, because even at that age, I understood the sacrifice that it was for my parents to get me the gifts and have those things. Like it, like the financial issues and troubles that my family had and my parents kind of suffered through growing up as a kid. It wasn't hidden from us. They tried their best to soften it, but it wasn't hidden. It wasn't a question of like, well, why can't we have the same thing that the neighbors have and they got this? Why can't we have this? Like we understood with my parents that we really don't have money to throw around. We barely have enough to cover our needs, and even that's questionable. Yep. But Mom and Dad, we went and we found this on eBay. It was a good price. We wanted to get it for you. We needed clothes one year, and so instead of my parents buying us all the cute, fun things for Christmas, my sisters and I got new clothes for Christmas. Why? Because that was the need that we needed to have filled. My parents understood that, and they decided to do that for Christmas instead of trying to buy us clothes in addition to all these other toys.
Yep. See, that's how I remember it. Like I still remember my dad. There were these little like army figures. They stood about as tall as this coffee mug, and they were these like little fat kind of GI Joe. One's a GI Joe, one's a cop, one's a fireman. But they you could fight with them and do whatever. They were these cheap little knickknacks essentially. And that was one of the gifts my dad got me for, I don't remember if it was Christmas or Hanukkah. It was right in that time. But the thing I remember that stuck out was that was the first time I'd received a gift where two things clicked into my head at the same time. The first thing was that it wasn't an expensive gift. And the second thing that clicked was that my dad clearly didn't have much money, and he still made sure I had a present. still based around something that my dad thought that I would like. And which is, I mean, I wasn't that profound as a kid. My childhood was fairly simple. My dad went to work, my mom was home, and I went to school and I came home, and that was like the extent of the reality. We had very little. My parents did what they could with what we had, but I remember looking at that, and I still in my mind have a picture of that little figurine because again, it was the thing that stood out of, as you said, that understanding that my parents didn't have a lot, and they still made sure I had something to open. Just because they didn't want me to feel left out. Mm-hmm. They didn't want me to feel like I didn't have something, which they could have very easily just said, look, you got food on the table. That's Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, days 1 through 8. You're going to be fed for another 8 days. To have a little gift, and it clicked in my head like, wow, like, that's cool. And I came to love that thing. I don't remember how long I played with it, but I loved that toy. I still wish I had it because I'd put it up on my desk and just keep it as a reminder. But that's the kind of thing that I want to instill in my kids.
Yep.
But the imagination will come. God's bred that into us. That is there, and it's not going anywhere. Ask my daughter. That imagination's not going anywhere. But those values that we're called to instill, if you nurture them properly, and leave the lying out of it, and just be truthful with your kids. Look, we don't have $10,000 a month. I can't go out and just buy you a dirt bike, but I can get you this. It didn't come from Santa. Dad worked very hard for it. Mom and Dad worked very hard. However that looks, we worked very hard for this, and this is what we have for you. And you teach your kids to be thankful for what they've got.
Yep.
That's gonna go to me. You want to talk about traditions and things over the years. That's gonna be something where your kids look back and say, man, my parents really looked out for me, as opposed to the child that looks back who's now grown up spoiled for 16 years and says, they didn't give me enough when I was a kid.
It's not to use it as an example, but case in point, your daughter, she's given everything and anything she wants from, her mother and stepfather, and yet she still calls you when she's home because she has no one to talk with and do whatever. She's got all these toys and all these different things she can go do. And sometimes she does, but you're always in the picture. You're always on the phone with her. Daddy, you want to go do this with me? Okay, sweetheart, let's go. She has all these things that she can entertain herself with. She has everything a kid her age would desire. But that doesn't satisfy.
And she understands that.
She does.
Last time she was here, she gave me that bottle of that Prime water, whatever it's called.
Oh yeah.
I'd got her. I'm sorry, it wasn't when she was here. It's when I was out for the daddy-daughter dance, and she says, "Here, Daddy, take this." Like, Dad, I got this for you. No, keep it. It's just the bottle with the juice. Yeah, but you'll remember coming out here. I came home. I washed that sucker out. It's sitting on my desk with a bunch of change in it.
How Jewish of you.
I know.
She'd be proud.
She would be. She really would be. She even she understands. It's not the value of the thing you're giving someone. It's the everything that's attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
To where when she gets something expensive, yeah, she's excited. Someone buys her an iPad and a Nintendo Switch, she's gonna be ecstatic.
But it doesn't last for that long, though, from what I've observed with her.
No. Whereas if you gave her a box and said, hey, this is our pretend airplane for the next month, that thing would be used for 30 days in and out until it was falling apart. And then she'd be asking for another one.
Yep.
It's the everything that goes into it.
Yep.
So.
How are we looking on time?
Probably about at the wrap-up point. You have anything else you want to add?
That's all I got for now.
All right. So again, Misfits, go ahead and drop something in the comments, please. Watching now, watching afterwards. Just let us know your thoughts. Dialogue. We're happy to keep on going.
And just understand, too, the intensity in which we're speaking. I know for me personally, and just addressing it, it's not meant to make anyone feel... There's no malice in what I have to say. Just understand that there's passion, but just like with all three of us, there's passion behind what I say because I'm passionate about God's word. I'm passionate about standing on His truths, and realistically, if there's someone who is going to profess that relationship with Christ, but there are things that they're not getting right, that is something that I feel the need to speak up on and at least say something to them. Whether God corrects them or not and uses me to correct them. I'm only the messenger. I'm the mail courier. That's all. That's all I'm able to do. But I can't not speak up and say something. Just as I would expect someone, if there was something that, if I said something that was biblically incorrect and theologically, I was trying to say biblical and
Biblicology.
Yeah. If there was something that I had wrong, or I got wrong, or I had the wrong understanding, or was doing something that wasn't proper and contradicted what God's word said, I would expect and hope and pray that someone around me who is a professing Christian, even not a Christian, if there's a flaw of some sort, that they would point it out to me, whether in gentleness or with a little bit of harshness, because, spoiler, I'm stubborn, and sometimes I need both.
I think and that's how we all stand, really. It's point it out. Well, we're not doing it to beat anyone over the head, but we'll even say if you see it in us, point it out blunt and call us out publicly. There's not enough pride here to have someone tell us we're publicly wrong.
And as a Christian, it is your job to keep your brothers and sisters in check. Woo!
He's right, Thanks, strategist.
You always make me smile now.
All right, with all that being said, tune in next Monday for our next live, and I believe we have our next roundtable discussion coming up as well.
Correct.
So, yeah, y'all keep an eye out, and if you need coffee, we'll be open pretty much consistent throughout the rest of this week.
Mm-hmm.
Until we see you, if we see you, whatever you're doing, you're going to watch me awkwardly bend over to turn off the camera after this. Stay safe, stay free, and stay caffeinated, Misfits.
Clink.
Clink. Clink.
No, you don't get one.
Try it again.
No, you can't. No.
Come on.
No, that train
I'm just drinking the coffee
is
now.
chugged on. Besides, my cup's empty.
That's sad. That's very sad.